Good evening. Good evening. It's February 25th. Excuse me, 28th. I'm losing my mind. February 28th, 2023, 6:32 p.m. And we're going to call the meeting to order. It is the regular meeting of the Board of Education. And the first item on our agenda is an anticipated adjournment to executive session. Can I please get a motion?
I move that we adjourn to executive session to discuss information relating to proposed pending or current litigation, the employment history of particular persons, personnel matters, and/or employee records, and matters deemed confidential by state or federal law, including seeking advice from counsel.
Second.
It's been properly moved in second. Any discussion? Hearing none. All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions? Motion carries. We're now in executive session, and we expect to return to open session at 7:30 p.m. Thank you. Thank you so much. It's now 8:01 p.m. We return to open session. First on our, can we convene the open session? First on our agenda is a Pledge of Allegiance. Can everybody please stand? The flag is to my right. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. Oh, we gotta wait for Trustee Marshall. Next on our agenda is our strategic plan discussion. Here she is. Okay. And last we left you all, we had gone through our strategic planning meeting where we stopped at page 6, I believe.
Yeah, we finished student success.
Excuse me, we finished through page 8, right? Mm-hmm. If I can remember it correctly, yes, okay. And next on the strategic plan is the strategic goal number 2, infrastructure. We commit to update, repair, replace district facilities and technology to ensure that student safety and health and to meet the requirements of the future classroom. Success metrics are all schools within the district will meet the safety, health, and educational needs of a high-performing district. Key action plans have strategic objective 1, develop an overarching strategy for renovating and/or replacing existing buildings, including technology, financing, and community support. First action plan is coordinate with architect to update the 5-year capital facility plan. Coordinate with architects to perform an economic and needs assessment for renovation versus replacement. Create a tracking document of projects/building condition survey for the public. Ensure all safety and health requirements include all requirements for the 21st century classroom and that measurements are considered and implemented in the renovation/replacement strategies. Ensure sufficient classroom seats for expected increase in percentage of ECP students who matriculate to kindergarten. Any feedback, comments, concerns? No? Strategic objective 2. Develop a marketing plan for community engagement on all capital projects, including timelines, content, and community usage. Ensure all safety and health requirements include all classrooms Ensure all safety and health requirements include all requirements for 21st century classrooms. Update infrastructure and technology per the technology committee. Include student success and SEL requirements as defined by the education committee. Develop a timeline for completion of capital projects. Develop a public relations plan to include the following: outreach to all sections of the community for input as well as provide timely and meaningful feedback. Define the educational benefits of a plan. Develop priorities for a 5-year plan. Develop programs to encourage community usage of school facilities. And that is it. That is the whole section for strategic goal 2, infrastructure. Does anyone have any questions? I do need to ask about our special needs and disability students and public. I did not hear or see that in here, but I don't know if it's captured somewhere else specifically. I don't know if anyone on the committee wants to address that. For example, we had like the mansion for many years. It did not have like an elevator. We used to have community member come out and specifically address the fact that, you know, we were not handicap accessible per se in the mansion. So all I'm saying is I don't see that. We have students that have handicap needs. We have staff that may or may not have needs, and I don't see that captured in here. Yes, Trustee Valen?
I'm just going to posit that I would think that would all come under the umbrella of include all safety and health requirements.
I agree, but I feel like, as we talked about in the previous goal, if we don't actually spell it out, it could get easily overlooked. Yes?
Wouldn't that be part of define the educational benefits of the plan?
Which,
On page 11, the
okay.
second box?
okay. Define, the second, under key action?
Yes. The third. I think it's in the broader sense of everything here.
It definitely is. I just don't want us to, you know, for years we had, as I said, a building that was not accessible. Mhm.
So, oh,
Trustee Warner?
so agreed. So that will get enforced more or less by law. Maybe we want to go a little further than that?
I'm just
So
hoping we
do you
don't-
want to just put in something that says ensure special needs are addressed for all staff and students?
So where would that go, though? Under which,
Under strategic objective number 1?
ensure, tell me the verbiage you just came up with?
I just said special needs are addressed for all staff and students.
Does anyone have a concern about that? Yes, Trustee Pineda?
I don't have a concern per se, but I want us to be clear. I mean, the one that I see that aligns says ensure all safety and health requirements include all requirements for the 21st century. By safety and health is where I think this falls under. So if we're going to be specific, then it should be under that one, not somewhere else where it can get lost in the sauce.
Okay, how would we capture that under that, though? Like, where would we put that?
You can put parentheses
Okay,
after the safety word and elaborate, delineate what Trustee Warner said,
okay,
and then close parentheses, and I think that covers it if we want to be that specific.
yeah. I would be happy with this specificity, just because it sometimes things do get overlooked. It's a very vast document and a lot of things that we're doing, and I would hate for, yeah.
Can I get the wording? Did I hear Trustee Warner give the wording? If I could get exactly what he said, I'd miss that. So when we make these edits, could you repeat that, Trustee Warner, how you describe that should be?
I said ensure special needs are addressed for all staff and students. And I think we just discussed we were going to put that under objective 2. Is that correct?
Yes, strategic goal
Ashley, is that
to
where you want it?
objective 1,
So
sorry.
I said, leave
Objective
it under
one.
strategic objective 1, and it would be under the paragraph ensure all safety and health requirements. We would put parentheses right after safety, and then insert
Yes,
that language.
that, we said that in 2 places, so
Yes,
it
I
goes
had
on under 1. You're right.
I just didn't get the wording.
Got it.
Okay.
Thank you.
Great. Any other questions, comments, concern about strategic goal 2, objective 1 or 2? Hearing none, we'll move on. Strategic goal number 3, communications and engagement. We commit to develop and expand communications to engage the total community. Success metrics are communicate consistently to 100% of the Greenburgh community, to include seniors and residents who do not have children in our school. Strategic objective number 1, expand communications community-wide to reach all cultural, ethnic, I can't read today, racial, seniors groups, and stakeholders. Key action plans include ensure consistent and transparent communications are distributed in a timely manner. Ensure that all school-wide communications from building principals to school communities incorporate a welcoming and affirming environment. Review current communication protocols. Weekly messages, school messenger, internal and external emails, text messages, social media, videos, newsletters, flyers, white paper, parent university, etc. Sponsor an academic competition that engages students, parents, and the community. Sponsor events that showcase student talents to the larger community. Develop a user-friendly and accessible website to provide information more efficiently to our stakeholders. Create an online communications toolkit that clearly outlines every district communication channel, including each channel's frequency and purpose. Partner with community stakeholder groups and associations to provide internship opportunities for the students. Provide families, staff, and other stakeholders meaningful opportunities to engage and provide feedback. Strategic objective number 2, identify opportunities to better engage with seniors and residents who do not have children enrolled in GCSD. Yes? Identify community liaison role to expand community partnerships. Create a glossary of pedagogical terms, abbreviations, and acronyms. Purchase electronic display boards for each school. Update mailing lists to include seniors and residents who do not have children in the district. Trustee Pineda?
So on the purchase electronic display boards for each school,
Yes.
this was a topic that we talked about a little in depth during the subcommittee. And we had some trustees that were for it, some trustees that were against it. Personally, I thought it was a good idea, but we wanted to have the conversation at the board level, which is why it's still here, referenced in blue, so that we could get everyone's opinion on it and see if we want to leave that as part of the plan or not. My thought process of leaving it here was we do have folks in our community that drive by, for example, Highview or Bailey, that could actually see the current signs we have there. The signs are hard to maintain. There's not enough space. If you look at the sign, for example, Highview comes to mind, depending which side of the road you're coming from, you're seeing different information because there's not enough room on it. We could use those signs to advertise our school events to try to get community members to come visit the schools, information for the parents. In general, I think it's a worthy thing to look into, but that was just me, so I just wanted to make sure I highlight that so that the board can weigh in on that.
Thank you, Trustee Pineda. Are there any trustees that want to give feedback, opinions on the signage administration? Yes, Trustee Valen?
And I will just state that I was interested in this topic being more about connection, and I thought that the signs that we have, changing them to electronic signs, first of all, would increase our carbon footprint, and if we're trying to move to energy performance, then perhaps that's not the way to go, to make them electronic. Secondly, they would just become another item of clutter. We easily ignore the electronic sign that's over by the Westchester County Center. I didn't know how much value added this additional expense would give our district as far as engaging, as far as identifying opportunities to better engage with seniors and residents who do not have children enrolled in GCSD. I think getting better engagement means getting our students and our school community out into the community. And that's why I was not for signage, electronic signage.
Thank you, Trustee Valen. What, does our administration have any feedback on the signage? Dr. I, Macaluso, Ms. Raymond?
It's been a topic that has been raised by the principal of Shore of Highview, who would certainly support something like this. You know, Highview is one of our schools centrally located on Central Avenue, and to be able to post things there would be nice. It's something lit and more visible. I don't have a preference. It's a nice add-on. I have a little marquee there. I've seen schools and districts where every school has one. They post activities, when grades are going in, when report cards are issued. It's a nice visible a reminder to parents at a glance, and those driving by, it doesn't hurt. So I can go either way.
Okay, trustee Thomas?
I mean, I would say I like the idea, and I think whether it's a good idea or not, but comes from how innovative we are in terms of what we put on it and how we put on it, and whether it's things that are appealing to people to look at. So I think it definitely can be a good idea, but it's up to us to make sure that it actually has the type of influence that folks have discussed.
Trustees Warner, Long, Washington, do you guys have any opinion about electronic signage?
Fine, I'm for it.
I'm for it, and there is all kinds of new technology in signage with LED that help them be lower energy, more energy efficient. One of our communication is, it's our number 3 goal here, and it's a fabulous way to communicate with our community.
Trustee Washington?
I'm fine with it.
Okay, great. So it looks like most people are okay with that, so that will stay. I'll keep going. All right, update mailing list. I don't know if I read that part. Oh, yes, trustee Long?
If I could go back to strategic objective 1, is it okay to do that now?
Yeah, do you guys want to stop me when we're going? Do you want to, let's see how, well, I'm on the last page, so let me go through the last 2, and then we'll go back. Update mailing list to include seniors and residents who do not have children in the district. Strategic objective 3, increase community-wide confidence and pride in our district and schools. Explore other options to add additional signage in and around Greenburgh. For example, community events to market the district and attract families and students back to our schools. Trustee Long, what was your question?
I actually have 3 questions.
Okay.
So my first is on strategic objective 1, the second action plan. I think there would be some value in adding the word consistency in there. And what I mean by that is consistency across the schools. One of the things we talk about is the challenges of families and children transitioning from one school to the other. And part of that comes from the varied communication methods that happen at the different schools. So I'd like to see a consistency, and that doesn't mean everything has to be the same, but an element that helps families when they transition to a new school to not be so surprised at the difference in communication. So if it's a weekly communication at one school, that it's a weekly communication at the other school, and that they use similar language. And I will say language as in language from the glossary.
So, go ahead.
Trustee Alonge, look at number 1 where it says the first action there, ensure consistent and transparent communications are distributed in a timely manner. Do you think that addresses that?
Yes, the consistency is important to me.
Oh, so are you asking to add more there, or is that enough? Oh, because we do have it there as the very first key action under objective 1. If you.
I trust it in one place if you trust it in one place.
Okay, all right.
Okay, trustee Pineda, I saw you moving. Were you going to say something?
I was just making sure that we didn't miss trustee Alon.
Oh, okay. Anyone else have any comments? You had 2 more questions.
Yes.
Okay.
The second question is under strategic objective 2. Again, the second key action is create a glossary of pedagogical terms, abbreviations, and acronyms. Could we, instead of saying completed, can we say when it's available? Where is it available? So it's, in my mind, a goal, and a tool is more important than being done, but that it's someplace where it's accessible for those that need it.
Dr. Iverson, is this completed already?
Let me follow up
Okay.
on that. Let me follow up on that, and,
Okay.
okay.
Posted on district website, question mark?
Yeah, where
Posted
is it?
somewhere that it is of benefit
And
to.
then
stakeholders.
And then that kind of needs to come off as far as a goal, and it needs
If
to
it's
say
completed.
maintain. So that, there's always new acronyms, right? Maintain a glossary. If it's already done, where is it? And then we've committed to maintaining it and keeping it updated for folks.
Okay.
So what was the third question?
Last one is strategic objective 3, and this is a question of measurement. We talk about adding signage, but the objective is increase community-wide confidence and pride in our schools and district. Could we have a measurement of this that's related to enrollment growth? I mean, what is the impact of this? In my mind, we should see greater enrollment growth, more students staying in the district from beginning through end.
But how does that relate, though, to community? I guess enrollment growth, I agree, we need enrollment growth, but I'm wondering, how do we fit that into communication?
It's just a measure that
Yeah.
we've done our communication, that,
As evidenced by enrollment
yes,
growth?
yeah. So it's not an action plan, it's a measure. It's a way for us to see that we're having impact.
What would you recommend as something reasonable? So you're saying here with this objective, to employ options to attract families back and students back to our schools. So I hear what you're saying. You want a measurement of how many kids per year?
Well-
Is that what you mean?
Well, let's look at percentages. So, Ms. Raymond, you mentioned very quickly in a meeting, I don't know what meeting, I don't know what board meeting or committee meeting, but you mentioned that we bus out X amount of students to private and parochial schools. So we can find a measurement. And so we have X amount of kids in the school district enrolled, and we bus out X amount of kids.
About 500
Okay, so, okay, wait a minute. So we got about 500.
who are
Let's
out
take some
private
dirty
schools.
numbers. So 500, and then we have how much? 1,650 in the district?
16, 75, 85 now.
Where's the mathematician on the board? So that's how many? So we have, so that's like 1, 2, am I thinking a fourth, a quarter? Is that the right numbers? Ish? Anyone? Around there. Okay, so would it be then, some dirty measurement would be something like, so if now we lose a quarter of our students, we would have, by 2020, whatever is on here, we would break, have 18%, and then down to, 10%, I don't know. What are you thinking? You look like you're thinking, Trustee Pineda.
I'm just thinking of, I'm not sure that's the right metric to use.
Okay.
But I don't have a better metric at this moment.
Okay.
The reason I'm not sure that's the right metric to use is because you lose the granularity with that, right? So let's say the kids that are in our district total,
Okay.
you have some graduate and leave, and then you don't have younger kids replacing them potentially 1 year. This metrics gets skewed by that.
Of course, yeah.
So that's why I'm not saying this is not the metric to use. I'm just trying to see if there's a better one, but I can't come up with one at the
Right.
moment.
But we hear your question, so we're just trying to ponder. Trustee Valen?
I'm thinking as I speak, so forgive me. I'm thinking we've said in the past that, for better or for worse, we are a district physically located at the confluence of various highways, and a lot of people move here specifically with the intention of never attending private school. So we already have that barrier, that obstacle to overcome.
Never attending the public school.
Correct. So I'm not saying that Trustee Long's comment is I think it's a worthy goal to use that metric. I just don't know how possible it will be to capture the people who will never attend the public schools here because of their intended move here for not, without that intention, I'm not stating this properly. So if we were to look at a metric or consider another metric, maybe we could consider support for the school budget, since
That's another
that
metric, yeah.
wouldn't necessarily be enrollment, but it's support for the district.
Like by look.
So
by
let me
years, we have
throw
X
that out there
amount.
as food for thought.
That's another option. So every year we have X amount of voters who,
Come
total
out and
voters
vote.
that voted, X amount passed, X amount
I
didn't.
mean, that will encompass other factors such as, the reasonableness of our budget proposals, et cetera, et cetera. But if if the strategic objective says increase community-wide confidence and pride in our districts and schools,
How do we measure that?
right?
How do you measure community-wide confidence? So suggestions have been budget, passing budget pass rates, and then also enrollment. Are there any other ways to measure community-wide confidence?
Well, people are going to hate me for this, but survey says, right? So if you take a survey and people say, no, I hate this district, and other people say, hey, I've had really good experiences with this district, and more people say positive things this year than said positive things last time we did the survey, then you know that your communication's getting better.
Okay.
I would only say that I'd want something more than the survey for concrete. We have a 5-year strategic plan that so many stakeholders have participated in developing through the various stages that we should want some concrete impact to that. And in my mind, you never convert all private school students. That's all right.
Right, every
But
district.
we should have a goal that says kids want to come here. That should be one of our measures, that we get greater participation, that there's less interest in private school. I think that should be a measure in some way.
Okay, thank you. So I hear several things. Do we create a action plan that includes the different options? Or do we create more of a concrete goal or concrete action plan, specifically on enrollment? No, is anyone opposed to having the enrollment be used? Yes, Trustee Pineda.
Yeah, I think, based on this whole conversation, I think Trustee Valens' suggestion is what I would get behind. I think that's more consistent in terms of your sample set, et cetera. So that's what I would get behind.
Okay, so it's Trustee Werner.
If you want to go in that direction towards enrollment, I think a retention measure would be better than an enrollment measure because, as Chris Vellen has said, if you have people who come here because the taxes are a little lower than the other two high taxes in the other school districts, with the intention of sending their kids to private school, and that's the decision, you may not have the ability to influence that. But if you've already made the decision to put your kids in the school and at some other grade level you take them out, well, that may be dependent on what they see in the schools. So good communication would then have a greater impact on that. So you might want to go for a retention percentage, figure out how many kids do we lose naturally to all different causes, and then do we reduce that percentage?
Trustee Warner, that's a great solution to the problem we're facing. Does anybody have any concern about Trustee Warner's suggestion of a retention percentage as a measurement goal? These people are rarely speechless. That's wonderful. So let's look at that. So let's add a strategic key action plan to look at the retention percentage. So the retention percentage would rise. That's the goal, year to year.
Do we have a
So is it-
historical data associated with that?
The baseline,
Right.
We would have to set a baseline the
the
first year, and then the next year, and then the goal is for it to increase. Retention would increase.
So is that
By
an
X.
objective or a metric? We would make this a metric.
So,
As Trustee Alonge is looking for a metric, that will be a metric we would include as one of the metrics we will do each year. If we look at retention, an increase in measurement, increase in retention of students, or
we would, I think it would be really simple, like, we would retain, each year, we would retain a higher number of students, and then, under these boxes, year to
Right.
year,
That's
that
right.
percentage would be.
it would increase
Yeah.
going to the right.
So maybe administration can look at that
Yeah,
and
we
send
will.
us a suggestion or recommendation, Trustee Pineda?
Just to Trustee Thomas's point of the data, use the BEDS data over the last few years. That tracks grade to grade, right?
Right.
So that could be your baseline information to get started.
Okay, was that your third question, Trustee Long, or second?
Yes, ma'am.
That was your third question. Any other questions, comments, concerns on communication? I did have a comment. I don't see anything in here about communicating with our students and our children. So that concerns me a little bit. I'm wondering if we can hear more from our students. I mean, we've elected to have a student ex officio member as a board member on the committee, on the Board of Ed. Yet there's, unless I missed it, it's a large, thick document, but if there is anything in here where our key action plan is to receive some feedback from students about what they want, need in their educational process and experience, definitely at the middle high school, but even as, you know, young as we heard earlier, ECP, we have, you know, kids telling us what they want and need. We check in with them about the food. At the middle high school, we do check in with our students, but I do want some communications and engagement directly with our students. So I'm wondering how that can be captured. Did you guys talk about that at all, or did that come up anywhere?
I think that's probably more in safe and healthy climate and culture. Once we go to that next strategic goal, I think you will see some language and gathering some feedback. So we can capture it here, but I think it's captured in the next strategic area, focus area.
Okay, so we would not put anything in this particular section.
No, I'm just saying, once you get to this section, go forward and see it, this may suffice in just getting some feedback from students here. So if it's here, we're getting feedback, whether it's in this section or the next, I'm saying it's in the next, I think, next area.
Okay. And so one of the things, 2 more points. One of the things that did come up online, I believe, recently, was about our athletics and communicating some athletic successes with the community. How would that be captured? Would that be mailing list or something? Like, how would we shoot out successful things like academics or even, athletics or even academic competitions? There were times I would see things posted maybe a year or 2 ago, you know, did you know we had a fencing program? Different ways to communicate to non-parents or even people who are here that don't know that certain programs exist. How would we?
Just looking to see where it would fall.
And then lastly, I mean, even today, this morning, we had the snow, and we talking about communicating things in a timely manner. How do we measure what a timely manner is, and what does this board deem? Yes, Trustee Pineda.
Can we just tackle one item at a time so we don't get
Absolutely,
lost in the sauce?
absolutely. But that's my last question.
To your previous question about the students' talents, both academically and athletically, we do have this one item that says sponsor events that showcase student talents to the larger community. Maybe we could grab that and under that add in communication to the community about their actual talents, right? Because we have that. If you look in column 23, 24, we talk about measuring hits on social media. When folks are coming to our website, the district website, department website to look at this information, part of that thought process was athletics, the athletics pages, et cetera. So maybe that's where we want to capture it. Because some of the athletics communications we have are via our website, right?
Yeah.
We'll put the students' information up on a website with the highlights, you know. I know at the middle high school we do that, right? So maybe that's the area to add some verbiage for that.
is there thank you, Trustee Fernando, but is there a place to receive information on what people need? I mean, the critique is pretty much that we're doing it wrong in some way. We don't showcase these things. How do we hear from people the way to do it the right way? Like, how do we hear from people what they need? So is that, how do we solicit that information? Or do we just have the answers because we know how to get the information out? Do you understand what I'm asking you? So how do we get, if the point of view is that we're not sharing the information and people don't get the information, is it that we're not communicating it effectively? How do I know how you need that information? How do I know your communication preference? Do you want, maybe the social media posts don't work. We have in here social media, mailings. Maybe that doesn't work. Maybe there's some other method that people need to get the information. And how do we get that from them?
I don't know, we do have here review current communication protocols, so they're going to go through a process to look at what protocols are in place
Okay.
to see if they're effective, and so through that process, maybe that's where that will be will come from there. You see where that is?
I do.
Mm-hmm.
I do. I just know that, like, every once in a while, myself, I know Trustee Warner has also gotten phone calls about, like, the TV program not working, the public access channel. That's not something that I think we necessarily think about on a daily basis until we get a phone call. So that's an example of what I'm saying. Like, until someone tells me what's not working for them, how will I know what they're looking for?
Is that something we would need in the plan on that specific of, how do they do it now? They make us aware. They call and let us know.
Well, I mean,
do we need an action for that? Because we do have in the next goal area, there will be surveys sent out where the community, parents, and students will give their perceptions around everything. And from that data, I'm talking about the next one. When we get to it, goal area on safe and healthy climate and culture, we have surveys in there, several places where we're going to be sending it out to the public and our parents and our students. And questions could be on that survey there to elicit that information where we gather that data.
Yeah, I guess in my mind, there would be like a maintaining of relationships, right? A maintaining of communication with our civic associations, with our town, with our local community groups, ongoing commitment, and I don't see that in here, ongoing commitment of even informal communication, so that you're constantly getting that feedback with clergy, with religious groups in the area. With how do we capture that? Because I don't see that captured in there, and I don't have a good solution either, but I'm just saying I don't see that captured in there so that we can actually hear from people directly. Are you raising your hand, Trustee Valen? Are you? Okay.
I think I am. So you want the solution in the plan instead of reviewing what we're doing and what possible solutions will be. So one, if we want to build it in, it could be in addition to reviewing current communication protocols, we could add something in here, and I'm sorry, I'm not trying to pick on anyone, any one committee, but we could put in here, better utilize the community engagement and communications committee to outreach, for proactive outreach to civic associations, et cetera, for that two-way communication. Because I know there was a discussion about how we wanted to make sure this strategic goal was not just pushing information out there, it's what you're saying, Trustee Mears, it's here getting that feedback and having that engagement. So that's my suggestion, but
I want a measurement that's going to
I hear
value
you.
that engagement with the public, with parents who aren't happy. Like, I'm leaving your district. Okay, I value You're going to leave, fine, but I want to know why. Like, I value why. I value why you're not even trying. I value why you are leaving. Like, you know, placing a value on it by having it part of the plan.
So
Yes.
go to page 14.
Yes.
If all of you at the very top there. See, they will flesh out how they're going to do that. Right now, it's just an action plan. Provide family, staff, and other stakeholders meaningful opportunities to engage with and provide feedback. So how that will play out is what we will do, but there's an action step there that will cover that.
So should we put via the CEC committee, or just leave it?
We can, that wasn't the intent here, but if that's what you would like to have added,
That's the only thing I would say in regard to the CEC committee, and, you know, that's the goal, but there's a limited number of people who are represented, and it's generally, you know, kind of the same group on a regular basis. So, you know, there could be some, you know, groupthink, for lack of a better term, that's not reflective of what the entire community is thinking. So we definitely have to think broader than that.
do you think that covers it? I think that language, does that not address what you're saying? We do have language here that says with an action plan or step that we're going to do I think what you're looking for. What you're asking, how that will be done is what we will flesh out, but it
Okay.
says something we're going to be doing.
I have it down, and
Yeah.
I will, I guess, keep an eye on it. So I'll move on?
Yep.
Okay. The next phase, yes?
Sorry, before you move on, just looking at the beginning, the first page, 12, under the success metrics, where it says communicates consistently to 100% of the Greenburgh community to include seniors and residents who do not have children in our schools. I'm just looking at the wording of this. Maybe, are we saying communicate consistently to 100% of the Greenburgh community, including seniors and residents?
Yeah, we could-
Or,
we could change it to, because that's just what it means.
so it's not targeting only
Yes.
people who do not have children in our schools, it's including those? Okay, thank you.
Okay. Keep going?
Yes. We are now on 4.
So is there, one question, is there going to be a time when we see like a list of where it says like civic associations, clergy, religious, ethnic groups that have group meetings that we're going to outreach to? Is there going to be a specific like listing ever? Is that the next step? Like, where do we define who we're communicating with?
So that information won't be in the plan, but those will be organizations and stakeholders we will be reaching out to. So to your question, when will you see it? It won't be in the, are you saying you want to see them listed here?
Yeah, I mean, this document is going to guide the district, right? So I'm thinking like, well, when all of us are not here, how will people know
Who the
who we
stakeholders?
intended? Yes, trustee Pineda?
I will say that during our subcommittee meetings, we had a little trouble with that because the strategic plan is not supposed to go extremely granular, and we had to fight ourselves many times to pull ourselves from getting that detailed in the plan. So my understanding from our consultant and all the meetings we had is that level of detail would not go in the plan. That would be as part of the execution steps that the
Okay.
superintendent administration would take to implement the plan.
Right.
And if you wanted to see a list, that could come theoretically after the administration's implementing it, but it wouldn't be in this document. It was the way I
Okay.
understood it.
So that comes later, so, okay, thank you. All right, moving along. Righty, next, we're gonna go to page 16. And we have strategic goal number 4, safe and healthy climate and culture. We commit to foster a responsive, caring, and inclusive culture and climate where we all feel safe, valued, supported, comfortable, and hopeful. Success metrics are the perception of the climate and culture of the district will increase with a target of 80% satisfaction. Strategic objective number 1, establish positive and collaborative relationships between internal and external stakeholders. Increase communications with all stakeholders as detailed in Goal 3. Conduct a climate survey to collect data on perceptions of the community, parents, staff, and students on the culture of belongings, and publish results annually utilizing Hanover Research Partners. Is there any questions, comments on that? Trustee Along?
My question again is regarding the measure, as opposed to the measure here is annually. So that, my understanding of that is that annually we will conduct a survey. I'd like to see a measure that compares response rate and satisfaction rate from year to year, so that there should be a growth, as opposed to annually conducting the survey and measuring from year to year to see that there's growth in participation with the survey, because it's one thing to send it out, it's another to get responses. And also that, that there's improvement in whatever the survey, the satisfaction response in the survey.
Trustee Pineda?
I will say that I support the satisfaction rate metric. I do not support the response rate metric, because we did have a little lengthy conversation during the subcommittee on that as well. And as we all know, it's easy to hand out surveys, but it's hard to get them completed back. So we kind of went back and forth on that, and not wanting to set up what I would consider more of an artificial metric of just someone responding. So I would support the satisfaction rate, though, because I think that does target better.
Trustee
I don't have
Washington?
anything to say about that, but we had stated that the meeting was not going to go to a certain amount of time due to the inclement weather and the black ice. So I don't know how we can move this along, because we do have people in the audience that also want to make public comments. So I'm just wondering what we can do to be flexible and adaptable, knowing that the weather climate is changing.
And if we can do the next two next time,
Okay, yeah, we can definitely do the next two next time. Trustee
we'll finish these two.
Valen?
I'd like to state that the key action plan, where it ends annually utilizing Hanover Research Partners, I disagree with the idea of naming specific vendors in our document.
So we could just say a general, like,
We'll work on a different
yeah, I
terminology.
agree with that. I mean, does anybody need to have the name of a specific vendor in our document? Yeah, I would agree, we need to take that out. Culture of belonging, publish results annually, and just leave that,
Mhm.
period. Okay.
Oh.
Trustee Warner?
I think we should let the public play through. I think we should let them make their comments before it gets too much later at night.
Okay,
Could
I'm
we
sorry. Yeah, you said
cease this and then
let the public play through?
let the public speak, and then, that's a golf term.
So are you
Okay.
moving that we end this part?
I think we should stop right now.
Okay.
Let them speak, and then come back and continue if you still wish to do so.
Okay, thank you. So is any trustees object to that? No? Okay, so it's 9:48 now, we will stop. Thank you, 8:48. I've been doing that all day today. So let's, Okay. So we are on C1 right now. And so I hear from two trustees that we should jump to D3. So I'm going to do that. And we're going to open the floor to public comments. And we will circle back to see if trustees want to continue the strategic plan discussion. I think we were scheduled for another 11 minutes, or they want to table that till next time. Then we'll also address our committee reports and board president's report. I can table that due to timing as well. Yeah, timing and, and the weather. Thank you. Okay. First on our agenda is Lloyd Newland with Hillside Windover Civic Association. And I'm not sure what the second part is, but Mr. Newland, welcome. You have 4 minutes. Yes, thank you.
Okay, good evening. I'd just like to thank each and every one of you for coming out in this bad weather to service our community and our children. And as an ex-board member, I certainly appreciate, the sacrifice that you all have been making. Tonight, I'm here to speak on behalf of my community. 3 years ago, I left the board, and I was drafted again to lead my civic association. And there's a very, very important issue that is about to take place, and I noticed the board got hold of that, and there's a secession of Edgemont. And I saw the resolution that you guys drafted, and I certainly appreciate it. I think it's good. And as you know, the intent is that, Edgemont wants to secede from the town, and this has some serious tax implementation to the rest of Greenburgh. Edgemont attempted this several times, and I think this time they might succeed due to an old antiquated law in Albany that allow little hamlets or villages the right to vote to secede from the town. The problem we have with this, while they have the right to do so, the rest of the town should have the right also to have a say. And as it stands, only Edgemont resident has the right to vote, and the rest of Greenburgh, particularly the unincorporated area, does not have that right. And so we formed a coalition made up of our citizens, clergies, politicians, and we're trying to get a petition together and arrange a meeting with our elected legislatures to have them change the law in time to give the rest of the town, the citizens of the town, to vote. If Edgemont succeed with this, the town is stand to lose $82 million off the tax roll. 18.5, I'm sorry. And this also will have a serious impact on our schools. Why? Well, if the town lose revenue, they're going to have to cut services. And sometimes when you have to, balance your budget or lower your budget, it means laying off employees. And so all the services that we all enjoy now will be at stake if the town does not have the amount of monies to implement these programs. Many of these employees in the town are neighbors, friends, and relatives. And if like I said, if we allow this to go through and not have a say in it, the chances are if we have a say in it, we probably could stop it. How does it affect the school? I was a member of the Board of Education for about 20 years. And our school building, hey, listen, wind that clock over. Sorry. All right, I'm sorry.
So the 4 minutes.
So my 4 minutes up, thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Newland.
Okay.
Next on our agenda, we have Mr. Lloyd Court, and he's going to talk about incorporation and scholarship.
Lloyd, this is Lloyd. Thank you, Lloyd. I noted that this is a very, very concentrated board. I'm proud and I'm thankful. Having said all of that, I thought I would have said more because I brought my papers here to speak. But I was told I only have 4 minutes, so can I come on? First, I would like to take the opportunity to thank the relatively small group of Greenburgh residents who for over 3 decades established the Woodland High School Scholarship. I also extend gratitude to the current Scholarship Committee for its continued commitment to providing the lift to so many Woodlands High School graduates. In addition, I also would like to express gratitude to the school board, members of Woodlands High School administration, and the remarkable staff of this commitment and support for this remarkable success of the annual signature flea market for their events. In collaboration has been benefited to many of Woodlands high school students who may never have been considered post-high school education. None is excluded. The wonderful parents of these children are forever thankful, and I'm extremely glad that their dreams too has come true. Not if I may also give me the permission, let me take this few minutes to also thank the insight and the concern of the Greenburgh Central School Board of Education for passing resolution requesting legislation to modify Village Law 22-216. Indeed, from my perspective, and that of very highly respected individuals and professions, the current law would be devastating and compromised, and the quality of education in our Greenburgh schools district will be highly compromised. In fact, on the homeowners and residents of unincorporated town of Greenburgh will be alarmingly and also be highly compromised. To everyone within my voice, I will say, hopefully we will learn from the districts, the counties, and states with similar issues that failure to act exacts heavily price later. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Court. Next here on the sign-in sheet, we have Dr. Carol Allen.
Good evening, my friends. I would like to thank all of you for having taken up the cause that is being forwarded by the Saving Greenburgh Coalition regarding the need to change the state legislation as far as incorporation so that everyone in Greenburgh would be able to vote. When we meet with our legislators over the next week, we will be certain to emphasize the negative effect that incorporation would have on the ability of the school district to educate our children. I thank you again.
Thank you. Next, we have Manny Arisis, and you're speaking on the Village Incorporation support.
Thank you. My name is Manny Arisis, and I'm a resident of Juniper Hill. I like to say, and I'm supporting the Saving Greenburgh initiative, and I'm really appreciative and hopeful that it will be voted for unanimously, because we have to show unity when we go and speak to our state legislators. If we don't have that unity, like I've seen it happening in our town board, which hesitates and politicizes the issue of saving Greenburgh, it will never happen. Can only happen with the help of the state legislators. And if they see that the town is divided, they will divide us further. So I appreciate it when you do take your vote to approve this communique, that it should be unanimous. And thank you again for taking it up, and I appreciate your time and effort. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Next on our list here is Hugh McCauley, Incorporation Woodland Scholarship Fund.
Good evening, Board. It's a pleasure to see you. Some of the faces I know, some of you I don't. It's a pleasure and thank you for your service. A few years ago, there was a bond initiative in the district. The district failed that bond overwhelmingly. It would have added between 6 and 8% in increases in taxes. If Edgemont succeeds, the average taxpayer is going up 20%. That will cripple the local economy. Seniors will not be able to absorb it. Foreclosures were at a record rate before COVID. They got suspended because of COVID. But you heard from our seniors, they can't afford it. I listened before to almost an hour worth of great discussion on capital projects. And as a person that specializes in capital and facilities improvements, plans with no money are no plans. So I'm glad that you're joining this resolution. Anyone watching at home, you need to sign the petition. You need to look. You need to understand that you do not currently have a vote. It is critical that every member of our community reach out and exercise their vote. But they can't exercise it if they don't have it. And that's what this is about. It's about voter suppression. So I thank you for the resolution. I think it's a great leadership move. And at a time when the schools need work, when the $25 million or $20 million bond was asked of a couple of weeks ago, there was a very, very small turnout. Because you have the confidence of the voters. You have them. You had a great plan. You presented it well. You communicated well. Unfortunately, if this happens, it's the first phase. The second phase will probably be the village of Hartsdale. So it's just going to be progressive. And at a time when money is becoming tight, every dime counts. And I was listening to your conversation. You're watching the budget very closely. Superintendent, you're working very hard to keep your budget in line. The Woodlands Scholarship Fund, I've been with them for over 40 years. They've donated over $1 million. $1 million. And that may not seem like much in a school budget, but to a community that raised that money, selling cupcakes and having bake sales and delivering crates of oranges in the snow, it's a lot. So $1 million. So I would ask the board and the superintendent and the school leadership, do whatever you have to do to get that, to keep them thriving. Because that's just another avenue. That's going to be one of the only revenue streams coming into this district. The town has suspended almost all its projects. It's preparing, it's probably got a closed-door layoff plan. And how does it happen? How does it happen? Well, it happens like this. The Senate Majority Leader, President of the Senate, turns around and calls for legislative aid and says, makes this happen. It goes to the floor 5 days later and they vote on it. And we need your help with that. So again, thank you for your time. Ms. Jones, thank you and your committee for all the work you've done over the years. My kids, one went to Woodlands, graduated, it's doing great. Wish he'd call a little bit more. My daughter was in special ed, she was bussed out, that worked out all right. And again, thank you. Thank you for watching and what we're doing and joining us. Thank you.
Oh, that was exact timing. Okay, and next we have last speaker, Ms. Rita Jones on education.
Good evening to all of you, and thank you for coming out tonight, because when I heard school was closed, I said to myself, good, I don't have to come out to a board meeting again. But anyway, I'm here to educate some and to re-educate others about the scholarship fund, because for the last 4 years, I think it's been, we've been having some battles just to get some support from the school. And this was never before. Over the years, and it's over 60 years, Hugh, since this fund was started back in 1961. And it was started by the then board president, Charles Snyder. He was president of the Board of Education, and he noticed that many of the friends that came to his sons, came to his home to visit his sons, he would say to them, are you going to college? And they would say, no, we can't afford it. So he and other like-minded people got together and they formed the Scholarship Fund. In that sense, it is unique, and I hear people tell me, well, what if the PTA comes to us and asks? Well, the PTA is a national organization. And first of all, Greenburgh joined the PTA in the 1980s. In fact, they were PTO, because they did not want the hassle of the PTA until they had some legal problems, and then they joined the PTA. So check it out. And I was a member of the PTA throughout my children's years at school, and even after that, I joined the Westchester County PTA. Check it out if you want to. I was juvenile protection chairperson for many years there. So I have no problem with the PTA, but I don't want to be compared to them because I don't think there is any other organization in any high school that's has lasted this long, and we ask nothing of the children but to apply. And they do not have to be going to a college, actually. What they have to be doing is going to higher education. We find that every time we are having a flea market, and right now we need to know from the district if we can have a rain date of the Sunday. We've done this for years, and as I told Dr. Iverson, we used to have the flea market at Woodlands High School. Many of you don't know this. It was held at Woodlands High School on a Saturday and a Sunday, both days. So we went to Webb Field for the simple reason that it has more traffic on Webb Field. We'd make more money at Webb Field for the vendors. I don't like to be compared with other organizations because we all have a purpose to fill. I feel we're an in-house organization, and I'm being told we're just a club that got together. We're not. Over 60 years of clubbing is a lot to do. And Our members have shrunk over the years simply because people have aged out. One of our members is Ruth Mitchell. I think many of you who grew up in Woodlands, I mean, not Woodlands, in Greenburgh, would know Ruth Mitchell. She just moved to California, and she was one of the founding members. I wish she were here, but she will tell you the different things that happen in the fund. And we are very much involved with the students because we feel this way. If a student has an opportunity to go to college, if we say to them, oh, here's a little bit of money to help you to get in the door, that's what Mr. Snyder wanted. And in fact, I've spoken to Mr. Snyder's son, all right? And I'll give him a little kudo. Any of you who are musicians or know musicians, Mr. Snyder's son, Frederick Snyder, was one of the best trombonists in the county and in New York State. So what I'm saying is he used to come to the award ceremony, and his grandchildren are still involved with me, and we do talk with them, so we knew what they wanted. So I'm asking the I'll be finished in a minute. I'm asking the Board of Education to kind of have a policy going so that we can get the help we need when we have fundraisers. Because every time there's a change of administration and they don't know about the fund, we find we have a battle, and we shouldn't have to battle the administration to get help. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Ms. Jones. And that is it for our speakers. We are now at committee reports, unless actually we had 10 more minutes of the strategic plan discussion. Does anyone want to go back to that, or do we want to table that? I see you nodding for which.
Finish it.
Finish it, okay. So I will go back to that. I think we were at these number 4, safe and healthy, but before we go there, I forgot the key thing. I have 2 of these documents, and I must have wrote it on my other document. With communication, I didn't see anything in there about translation services, ensuring that things are translated all the time. I don't know if the committee talked about that, and it's captured somewhere I'm missing. But making sure that all written documentation, blasts, verbal documentation and information that goes out gets translated? Yes, no?
I mean, that's again another very specific.
Trustee Valen?
Perhaps that would fall under strategic objective 1, which does address community-wide reach to all cultural, ethnic, racial, seniors groups, and stakeholders, and specifically action plan that says ensure that all school-wide communication from building principals, incorporates a welcoming and affirming environment. I think part of that welcoming environment includes the fact that people would understand what is being sent. I also think that the next action plan, which says review current communication protocols, that review should incorporate that. I understand you want to call it out here, so maybe these are the areas where it could be called out specifically. That could also fall under the develop a user-friendly and accessible website. Accessible implies that everyone would be able to understand it. I'd also like to point out we do have translation on the website. But those 3 areas, if you want to specify, those could be the areas where we plop it in there.
I would also like every single building to have reference list of sorts where parents can get definitely Spanish language if we don't have any other language. But I remember I requested some sort of document, and I saw that Spanish is the language primarily that our district, English, Spanish, and then there were other languages, but they were smaller in percentage. But definitely Spanish, some sort of resource list for parents to have in each building. I would like at least 3 in my mind, where each building, if I pop up at building number 1 and I need to speak to someone, there's a list. I have 1, 2, 3 person. Can I get Ms. Kraus? No. Ms. Raymond? No. Mr. Thomas? So that parents have that, some concrete information for parents. So I would like to spell out in our document that we will definitely place weight on being able to communicate with our families that do not speak English. Trustee Valen?
I will just note that when, since this is public, when someone calls one of the school buildings and they are not understood by a caller, the staff, when you call the building, does know who to seek out within the building to provide those translation services. I'll just note that anecdotally right
Thank you.
now.
I want the parents to know who to seek out. I want that information to be clearly documented and shared with parents so they know, I have an issue, who do I call? I don't want any parent hesitating because they're not sure they should ask for Mr. Pineda or Miss Along or Mr. Like, they should know. There should be, I mean, we can have three people in each school that parents should ask for to help them.
I'm
when
not
they're in
disagreeing.
need.
I'm just pointing out that we do have people in each building, just
Yeah,
in the interim.
absolutely. So how do we, in this document, respect, give weight to non-English speaking parents, specifically Spanish speaking families, and community members that need to speak to someone, for example, or need to receive information? How do we say that we will make a concerted effort to ensure that we translate everything, verbally communicate, and also provide access, proactively provide that information to parents? That's what I'm asking for. Trustee Pineda?
I need a little more context. So I know that when we send out documents, letters that come out, all that stuff that comes out, that comes out in both English and Spanish. So what I need a little more context from you on is, are you talking about when people call? Like what is the use case where you feel that's not happening so that we can target that? Because the written communications, I see it happening.
It does not happen in everything, but I mean, I would have to sit and look and find situations where it doesn't happen. But I don't know, for example, just the way that, I don't know, I would have to think of an example of how it does not happen. I mean, I'm giving you a concrete example of maybe a parent needing to call or speak to someone at the school or show up at the school. Who do they ask for? I just gave you that example, but I want in our strategic plan for it to be clear in our communication section, be clear that we value translation, we value communicating with people in their native language of Spanish specifically, because we have a large amount of students and families that speak the language. That's what I'm trying to capture. But I understand what you're saying. When I find examples, I can send them to you.
So no, I don't need you to send. I was asking for the context so I can understand what you're thinking is. So it sounds like I like the idea. I don't agree with identifying three people specifically for a myriad of reasons. But what we could do, if we're following the chain of thought of it's a call coming in, and the person, the individual calling may not necessarily be able to get the resource they need, we can ask administration to, and I think we have asked this in the past, we've asked for administration to look into like an interpreter service or a translation service on the fly that they could call in that use case, and that can help translate real time, because the issue I have with identifying specific people is, well, the person could be out, they could be sick, they could be at lunch, but if you have a service we're using, the service will be there. So I would recommend, if we want to do that, I support it, but maybe we go that route as opposed to calling out a specific list.
Yeah,
of
I mean, I
people.
don't know that the example, whether it's a service, whether it's listing people, those are right. Those are how they're going to do it. But I want it written somewhere in here that we're going to make a commitment to that, and that commitment involves money, right? So the money for a service, or even the money. I know we talked about those in-person, in-meeting headsets, right, where someone can talk into the mic and it's translating as it's happening, because we had those headsets in the past. So that would involve money, but actually making a commitment that we're going to do that. We hire people to be the written translators or the oral translators, right? So we've made a practice of that, but that's not part of our plan to be a commitment for it. Yes, Trustee Warner?
Okay, so you're going to put something in that says, ensure parents can communicate with district personnel in their own native language, right? And then you're going to have to measure how well we did that at some point. So how do you think we should measure that?
So where would we put that, though?
It sounds like a welcoming thing. Create a welcoming and affirming environment. So maybe objective 3.
What page is that, 12?
Well, I've got 16, but I'm not sure. I'm working off the latest draft. But this part was unchanged.
If I can refer to the 3 places I suggested, under strategic objective 1,
what
on page 12 of the draft, I don't know what version you have, draft 7 is what I am looking at.
Yeah.
Strategic objective 1, under strategic goal 3, objective 1, action plan 2, ensure all school-wide communication incorporates welcoming and affirming environment, is what I suggested. The one after that, reviewing current communication protocols, or the one on page 13, develop user-friendly and accessible website. I mean, it's already really
So
there.
welcome and affirming environment, and then Trustee Warner, you said to add,
Right, and I was off in objective 3 of goal 4, saying that I'm creating a welcoming and affirming environment by doing this. So,
Objective 3.
I mean,
What
you've
was
got
the
a
verb?
communication goal and you've got a,
what was the verb that, what was the verbiage that you used?
I said ensure parents can communicate with district personnel in their own native language. And then whatever method you come up with to do that, you use.
Okay. So,
The how, though, won't be in here. That would be
Right,
something
so
the
the-
administration would create, and that could be a strategy. The example you're giving may be what they will do, but we could add a bullet here. I had the same thing you had, Trustee Warner. I wrote something similar to increase communication with our families who do not speak English, or we could come up with some verbiage and add another action plan here with that language in there to make it a commitment in here that
Yes.
that's something that will be done.
Okay.
But how it will be done may not be the exact way you're suggesting.
Yeah, no, of course.
Okay.
Yeah. You
All
have-
right.
Yeah. Okay. Sorry, let's move
we'll
on
come
to
up with
the
some
next
language for
one,
that.
and we'll go just till 9:30 then.
Okay.
The next, what page are we on? I'm sorry. 16.
Yeah,
So,
we're back.
strategic objective 2,
Mhm.
ensure a sense of belonging and wellness for all students and staff. Distribute district-wide culture and climate surveys sent out quarterly to be reviewed by the SEL committee to make targeted improvements and elicit feedback from all stakeholders, 85% parent community feedback. Develop and implement a district-wide SEL program. Track data on the district SEL program. Establish on-site wellness room at each building for staff and students.
So this is where I was referencing some of the surveys that'll be going out annually to different stakeholders. We have, the first one says, conduct a climate survey to collect data on perceptions of the community, parents, staff, and students on the culture of belonging, and publish the results annually. So there is the first vehicle where I was trying to reference where all the stakeholder groups will have a voice, have some kind of way we're going to get information from them on what they want to see. So we can structure those questions to get the kinds of information you were suggesting, that you want us to give them an opportunity to tell us what they want, correct?
Yes.
So
but-
that
but I'd
survey is
like-
one example where we could do that.
Yeah, but that still is not under communication. I just want to make sure communication is two-way, to document that it's two-way. That's why I brought that up, but we can have it repeated here as well.
So you're saying this is not two-way, getting information from them?
We could have it repeated here. I was saying that the communication goal should have information about two-way communication. The communication goal shouldn't just be one way. To me, I'm just one person. I don't know how the rest of the board feels.
As long as it happens, I don't care which goal it's
Where it
under.
is. See, that's what I meant. It's somewhere else in the plan, it's happening.
Right, but if this
you-
plan gets modified in the future and the safety and healthy looks different in the future, we've now lost the communication piece. Communication should always be clearly two-way. But that's just me. If you guys don't care where it is and there's no commitment to having two-way communication documented under communication, then that's fine too.
I'm sorry.
Trustee Valen?
I'm confused as to where we are. Are we on
We're on
the communication strategic goal
No, I thought
3?
we
or are
talked
we on?
about that already,
Okay,
but-
well, so I'm confused. So where exactly are you not seeing? Help me identify where we're on.
We're on
16.
safe
Go
and
for it.
healthy climate and culture.
Okay,
Dr. Iverson asked whether or not conducting climate surveys is a way to receive information.
okay.
To give our stakeholders a voice to give us information on what they would like to see. These questions will elicit their perceptions of our culture,
Right.
being belonging, and with the questions that we give them, we will get their feedback. That's, to me, that a way of getting communication from them.
Right, I see that
So
as
it's
two-way,
two-way.
so I'm
That's
confused
what
as
I'm
to
thinking, that's
where,
two-way.
that's why I'm confused as to where we are, maybe. Is that not two-way, or am I missing?
It is two-way.
Okay.
But I brought it up during communication also. I was asking for that to be clear in the communication goal.
Okay.
Okay, so we can
So
go
in
back.
the communication goal, if you're going back there, on page 14, provide family, staff, and other stakeholders meaningful opportunities to engage with and provide feedback. So,
We already finished that,
I know, that's,
thought,
I'm just,
but
okay.
But that was the two-way communication in communication
Dr.
section.
Iverson's
Right.
bringing it
Yeah.
up that this is where
Okay.
I'm saying for it to be in both places. That's what my point is. But trustee Along.
Because it's a document of the whole, as long as it resides in one place in here, and a lot of these action plans probably touch multiple strategic goals because they're vast. So I don't know that we need to repeat anything, as long as the meat is someplace in the 5 various goals.
That's fine, but I still think communication should reside in communication. I just disagree. It sounds like the rest of the board doesn't. We can put communication under safe and healthy climate. Trustee Pineda?
I'm going to concur with Trustee Valen. I think it's already covered under communication on the key action plan that says provide family, staff, and other stakeholders meaningful opportunities to engage with and provide feedback. I think that does capture it, and it's under communication. So I think we
I
have it in
understand.
both the areas already.
Yeah, I
That's just
understand.
my-
I think the board is very easy to just go along and not be specific. We have to think way ahead of ourselves where we are right now. We have to think about when we're not here, this document meaningful. What does that mean? If we don't specify, and we had a whole conversation about the CEC, I don't want to go back to communication, but if we don't make it kind of clear on what meaningful means to the board, anyone can interpret that, well, I sent out a email, so it's meaningful. That's not what I thought this document was. I thought we were capturing this board's understanding of our expectations, but, okay, Trustee Pineda?
I just want to restate what I said earlier. This is a high-level document that doesn't go into all the granular detail. There's a lot of places in the strategic plan where we wanted to put more detail, but as it is, it's 25, 26 plus pages, and I think that in my conversation at the subcommittee level, you don't want to necessarily pigeonhole yourself on some of these, and that's why some of them are a little more general in nature. For example, that one about providing feedback and all that, it's more general specifically because we're not identifying in here specifically how that will be implemented. Now, that said, the other key point of the conversation at the subcommittee level was, well, at the 5-year, this is the 5-year strategic plan, but you'll see that there's a column for each year. What we did discuss is, as we get past the 5-year overall strategic plan, we could inject each year this plan has to be reviewed by the board and by administration together as part of our strategic goals for the year. And what we had said was, if there's a specific thing that we need to get more granular on, we can inject it as we go through those review cycles, and update it as we went. So that's kind of where we left the happy medium on how we would address the granular pieces. So my point is, if the general comment we put there about providing feedback, if meaningful opportunities you feel needs to be more clearly defined, but as a group we're saying it's okay, then during our specific goal setting for the next cycle, for the next year, that's where we can get more granular for that year and say, okay, this is what we wanted specifically to do this year, and so on and so on, if that makes any sense.
Yes, it makes sense. I just want to go on record that I completely disagree with just leaving this.
Okay.
I think that, meaningful opportunities can be seen by multiple different people in different ways. And there's a lot of, even talking about equity and diversity with meaningful opportunities for communication is very, very important. That we have people who are not computer, literate, believe it or not, in 2023, there's people who don't go online and who just watch the television, like I mentioned before. Trustee Warner, your hand is up, please.
Okay, so going back to strategic goal 3, objective 1, I would change the strategic objective itself to add the word two-way. So strategic objective 1, expand two-way communications community-wide to reach all cultural, ethnic, racial, and seniors groups and stakeholders. Then that will support the later piece that we have on the next page where it says provide family, staff, and other stakeholders meaningful opportunities to engage with and provide feedback. Now, do you want to expand the language on that a little bit, or are you good with it?
I wanted to expand the language, but I'm in the minority, and I think due to time, we should probably move on. It's 9:30. But
Okay, then I would
hear you.
suggest we just put the word two-way in strategic objective 1.
So can you say that again? Expand?
Expand two-way communications
Great.
community-wide to reach all cultural, ethnic, racial, seniors groups, and stakeholders. Two-way.
Okay, thank you.
You got a hook to come back to.
So we were on a whole nother goal. I got to go back to this now. We were talking about safe and healthy climate and culture. Distribute district-wide culture and climate we were talking about doing surveys. Next page was provide professional development to staff that supports self-awareness and self-help. Expand visibility of GCSD SEL programming via GCSD website, district newsletters, and social media accounts. Anyone have any comments or questions on that? I just want to say I'm not sure that surveys are the best effect. I think it's actually, the more you do, the less people fill out unless they're angry about something, but I guess that's the mode you guys are choosing. Trustee Pineda?
We came to that conclusion because we couldn't think of a better way. Do you have a suggestion that we could replace surveys with?
Yes, make a commitment to communicate. Make a commitment, like I said, to develop relationships. I said this before in the last goal. Develop relationships, making actually in the document that we're going to maintain those relationships with people, with organizations, with groups, with clergy. I listed all the things off the top of my head. It's late, I'm on stage, I can't think of things, but actually making a commitment to be in-personally communicating and making those connections and keeping those connections. But I
See,
hear
that's
you.
that's
Yes.
granular, very specific. We have a commitment. We have an objective that says, if you go back and, those are specific things to do, but if you go back to the communications, we have, if you just look at the language, strategic objective, expand, those are commitments. Expand two-way communication community-wide. That's a commitment in this plan. So how we do it, again, is not here, but there's the commitment that this plan says we're going to do this. And so they have these things they're going to do to increase that two-way communication. We can certainly add other actions, plans here if you like, but the strategic objectives are the commitments. If you go to the second one, it says identify opportunities to better engage with seniors. Those are commitments. So, and then we broke those commitments down to some examples.
Oh, thank you. Trustee Valen?
I'm just saying that's another way of thinking about the commitments. But I hear what you're saying.
Did you have your hand up? Oh,
So, looking at Goal 4, Objective 2, and the metrics, this, again, I'm going to say something that was part of the push-pull of being too specific versus being high-level. It was, as Trustee Pineda said, it was a constant conversation in the room. But if we're looking at metrics that aren't just surveys, I'm going to give a few examples just for the sake of discussion. And I think that one of the examples at the time was this objective refers to ensuring a sense of belonging and wellness for all staff, and then there's different action plans here about the develop and implement a district-wide SEL program and related items. And some of the specific metrics that were tossed out were things like, how do we track the implementation of those programs, you know, vis-a-vis the deliverables, and some things that went out there were tracking the data, tracking the percentage of mentor relationships that were formed in a building, how many, looking at mentor relationships, looking at possible referral rates to services or different incident reports, or seeing how many, are peace circles happening, weekly or daily in a different building. These are examples of very specific metrics that were thrown out there, but again, it's the push-pull of being too specific and having the overarching goal so that we're, without outlining exactly what we're doing on an operational basis, so.
okay, thank you. What about retention of staff? That's another metric. Maybe, oh, it's in a different area already? Okay, sorry, I missed that.
5.
Okay, guys, I'm sorry? Did you guys say something down there?
I said 5.
Oh, okay, fine. Okay, it's 9:37. I asked us to stop at 9:30, and I was rambling, so I'm sorry. I was not on the smaller committee, so thank you for allotting me, huh? Oh, okay. So I'm going to put a note where we stopped on page 16, I believe.
Yes, 16.
Or
We can knock this out next time.
where did we stop? Page 17, the beginning of page 17. Okay, so then we will start here on strategic goal 4, objective 3, right?
And when will we do that?
The next board meeting.
The next work session?
Work
Oh,
session,
thank
yep.
you.
We need to get this done, unless we were to have a special meeting, but it looks like there's only a couple more pages, but there is a page about discussion ahead of time here that a trustee wanted us to have a discussion, so hopefully trustees can read through that, page 15 first. Okay, let's keep going through the agenda. Thank everyone for their time. It's now 9:38. Next on our agenda was committee reports. Do we have any committee reports this evening? Trustee Along?
Just give her a second. It signed itself out.
It's signed out, sorry. Yes, we have a committee report, and let me find my correct tab here. For the Governmental Relations Committee, ad hoc committee, we met once on February 9th at 1:10 p.m., and attending was myself, Trustee Valen, and Trustee Warner. The purpose of the committee was to investigate the issue of Edgemont Incorporation and potential impact to the district. And in that meeting, we drafted the resolution that is located in our agenda tonight. We concluded the meeting. Let me see if I can get to a page down here. At 3:18 p.m. And that's all I have.
Okay, Trustee Along, thank you. Are there any comments, questions, concerns about the Governmental Relations Committee? No? Is there another committee that has a report? Trustee Pineda?
Yes, the Safety and Technology Committee met on Monday, February 6th from 5:30 p.m. to 8:30 p.m. at the Woodlands Middle High School Innovation Lab. We called the meeting to order at 5:41 p.m. In attendance were myself, Trustee Valen, Trustee Warner, Mr. David Leese, Dr. Macaluso, and Ms. Lisa Raymond. We adopted the previous meeting minutes. We reviewed the fact that the June meeting date is not going to work for Mr. Leese, and we agreed to forego the June meeting at this point in time, but we also agreed to leave ourselves the option of adding a meeting back towards the late portion of May if we needed to. Committee charges, we had a conversation on the committee charges that were being established. That was basically our first pass on those charges. During our next meeting, we're going to come back and make sure that we don't want to make any further changes to those charges. And if that's the case, we will then be in the future recommending the charges to the board for approval. We then talked about, we went into a safety conversation on Lobby Guard, specifically around the stations that are available for the schools to use. Lobby Guard is a system that each one of our school buildings has to ensure that folks that are coming into the school buildings are actually allowed to be in the school buildings. They don't have like some kind of, order of protection or something like that, or they're not on some kind of offender registry that they shouldn't be in a school building. So the context of that conversation was, do we have enough stations available at the various school buildings? What happens when there's an event? Can the principals request additional stations? And the ID printers that are connected to those workstations, do we have enough? Are they working, et cetera? So that is a work in progress. We also had a conversation on the vape detectors potentially being deployed at the middle high school at R.J. Bailey. We had an update on that. There is a type of vape detection system that is really good and can do all these wonderful things. However, it tends to have a lot of false positives. So it doesn't look like at this point in time that is likely to pan out, but we're going to wait for some further feedback from administration. They're the ones doing the diligence on this. We also had a conversation about a type of product called Evolve scanners, which basically can scan large spaces and try to identify any kind of weapon or something like that that shouldn't be in that space. Again, a very expensive product, but the administration is doing some due diligence just to get some further information, and they'll come back with their findings in a future meeting. We had an update on the website conversation, and what's going on there is there's a new slate of vendors that are being that have been analyzed by the administration. They provided some information to the committee members of the Safety and Technology Committee. We are looking at the information they provided, and the goal is that at a future board meeting, there will be a recommendation made from the Safety and Technology Committee as to which one of the vendors we should be possibly looking at and contracting with in the future, and that would be the platform used for the website moving forward. Obviously, it would be presented to the board, and then the board would ask questions and approve and vote, etc. We had an update on the one-to-one device program. At this point in time, the new asset management system to track those devices, who has the device, and the status of the device has been fully implemented, and the team is in the process of updating the record so that all the devices can be tracked, as well as conversation on the protocols in terms of how does the repair and replacement of the devices happen. We also had a status update on the order of 125 Chromebook devices that had been previously ordered. They arrived, they were distributed. The priority that they used for distributing those 125 new devices were anyone that did not have a device because they were new to the district received the device. From there, they went on to swaps or replacement for devices that were accidentally damaged. And then from there, they were moving on to creating a 12 to 15 device reserve at each building that could be used as loaners for students to sign out during the day if there was some issue with their devices. We did confirm at that point in time there was perhaps a handful of children still waiting a device. So that is as of the last meeting. We'll have an update during our next meeting. We then had a presentation provided to us by the Director of Technology on Tech This Out, and at that point in time, it was capturing January 22nd to 28th was National Data Privacy Week, and we had a brief presentation on different events that happened. For example, in Highview Elementary, there was a World Read Aloud Day, and it captured some of that stuff. And then at the secondary level, there was design process, and students were working in small groups or individually to redesign their classroom space, and there was a two-way communication going between them and the administrators that were helping judge the designs, et cetera, to really, and it went to a level of design and budget planning as an example. Obviously very high level, right? But the fact that the kids were being involved with this process and thinking about resources and how do they implement their ideas, and overall it was received well. Then we had a brief conversation on network infrastructure, the upgrades that are being planned between July 1st, 2022 and the updates that happened between July 1st, 2022 and June and January 1st, 2023. The next phase of upgrades, some of that's being folded into the 5-year strategic plan, and that was under the infrastructure part that we were kind of talking to, and the budget planning. There's also a new phase of enhancements that will be coming to wireless connectivity and hardware that will be replacing the buildings, and bandwidth capacity considerations. For example, how much bandwidth does each building have, and how much capacity does each building have that will be needed in the future for any online exercises or any kind of communications happening. From there, we had new business. There was no new business. Our open session closed at 6:18 p.m. We started a closed session at 6:18 p.m. That talked about safety topics, etc. And then the meeting adjourned at 8:38 p.m.
Okay, thank you, Trustee Venator. Are there any questions, comments, concerns? There were
Sure.
Yes, Trustee Warner.
I would make the comment that this idea of having the kids look at redesigning their own classrooms, or at least the space in the classrooms, is a good one. And we've been looking, and we have this thing in our strategic plan about having this this goal of figuring out how to have a 21st century classroom and not having a lot of specifics to put into that. And a way to at least make it a lot more interesting is to get the kids involved into what they think the ideal environment is. So that's a very hopeful sign to me.
Very hopeful. I have two questions. So you did say the 125 Chromebooks arrived and then they were fielded out. Did we put in a second order? I don't know if you said that, I missed it. Like, is there a second, like, do we just keep ordering, like
So
an ongoing?
So I will defer that to our business person, but my understanding is there are supply chain issues with these devices as well as budgeting issues, so I don't know what the status with that would be.
To my knowledge, the next round is not going to
Do we, is the plan, is it, so it's not been ordered? But is it, you know how like you can buy things every 6 months, put in another order for 50 because we noticed that.
So-
Is that the goal?
So I can talk to that a little bit. So in future Safety and Technology Committee meetings, we will discuss that further.
Okay.
But to give you an answer, there is a plan being developed still by the Director of Technology, working with Ms. Raymond and Dr. Iverson and Dr. Macaluso, as to how to reset what you're talking about is called the hardware life cycle.
Okay.
And typically with any piece of equipment, there is a life cycle that a piece of equipment follows us. It lasts for, X amount of years, and then you eventually have to cycle it out. They are reconfiguring what that life cycle will look like, as well as how to catch up in terms of tracking all the assets, which I mentioned earlier. They got into the database, they got all that figured out. But along with that comes, okay, what devices need to be replaced 2 years from now, 3 years from now, so they can get into that cycle of, okay, this year we're going to order X amount of devices, and next year it'll be X amount of devices. But they're still going through that process and figuring out how to do that. So that's why there's no real concrete update on that today.
Okay, thank you. And lastly, I was just going to ask if there's been any communication with maybe the new ones that are going out about not personalizing your Chromebooks. without giving too much anecdotal information, a lot of children have, because they've had it for 3-4 years now, this is my Chromebook, so they're not breaking it, they're taking good care of it, but they might put stickers on it, or their names. Some parents have bought, carry cases and safety cases, which is great, but there are some permanent fixtures, stickers being one of them, that many of the kids, definitely the younger kids, some of the middle high school kids, are doing. So is there any movement to kind of say, by the way, it's not really yours. You got the same one, you've kept it in great condition for so many years, but
I can check with David Lees.
yeah. I don't know if, I'm sure he's got some of them back that may have, kids like their individuality and identity, and, yeah, I'm sure you've seen them. I've seen them myself. So, okay, thank you. Just wanted to bring that up as well. Any other committee reports? Yes, Trustee Warner.
Okay, the Finance and Facilities Committee met on 2/16 at 6:30 PM in person at Woodlands Middle High School, Innovation Lab, and via Zoom. In attendance were David Warner, Dennis Pugliese, Chris Vallon, Walter Simon, Katie McGee, Jessica Muldoon, Megan Hack, Ashley Pineda, Gabriela Barahona, Michael Messina, Carol Allen, Amy Ashley Moore, Lisa Raymond, Tracy Mares, Luke Johnson, Dave Bridgelal, and Giovanna Isaguera. I'm not going to read the whole thing. It's about 6 or 7 pages long. I'll skip through it a little at a time. So we talked about Phase 2 to start with. Phase 2 is a district-wide construction project to be executed following completion of the current Phase 1 project. So it's further out because we're not done with Phase 1. Phase 1 was mainly the Highview East Wing roof, which is done, and permanent ventilation fixes to replace all those window fans we installed for the pandemic. That's still in progress. We're still waiting on equipment to come in so that we can complete everything. We hope it'll happen by this summer. So we wanted, in the meantime, we've had a huge staff turnover, so we wanted to give a little history lesson on Phase 2. So Phase 2 priorities include building condition surveys, priority 1 and 2 items. So we have the 5-year building condition survey. We prioritized everything from 1 to 5, and so we want the top level things to be taken care of. That's we wanted to specialize within that on building envelopes. That's roofs and exterior walls. Water is the enemy. We want to keep water out. And any remaining ventilation fixes, and early childhood program classrooms. So if you're concerned, for example, about Leo Jackson being overcrowded, that's the piece we've known for a while that we need to address. So we reviewed an old 2021 sample Phase 2 proposal. It had 4 ECP classrooms, Leo Jackson roof replacement, the other half of the Highview roof, the R.J. Bailey Auditorium, which we have another plan for at the moment, and the Woodlands Middle High School, a partial roof there, and some fix-up of the mansion so that you could get to the point at which you could put the administration back in. And that totaled, at the time, back in 2021, about $18.3 million. Now, that's old. And at the time, we made the agreement that the actual proposal, what we came up with was based on the BCS and BBS estimates, that the actual proposal needs to come from the administration so that we have complete support. And so that's what we're expecting to happen about a month from now. And of course, there are a lot of pieces in motion. You've got this 5-year plan moving along. We've got another document the administration has in draft form that says, okay, how are we going to implement this 5-year plan with all these moving pieces once we get there? What kind of staff are we going to need? How much room is that staff going to need? So that all kind of fits into this. So we did the history lesson. We went over the old proposal. We went over what happened in terms of our voting history for a couple of different times. We then looked at what it would cost now for ECP classrooms. Of course, costs have gone up. If we put 4 classrooms in, it's now $11.7 million. If we went for the large 8 classroom version, in which you would probably rededicate the ECP main building to something else, that's more like $16 or $17 million. We do have some money on hand. We have about $5 million we think that we could dedicate and make a bond smaller than the size of the project, but we wanted to put everything out there so that, that we knew what needed to happen. And we also figured out that it's about $3 million to rehabilitate the mansion to get the administrators back in, but not the ECP. So there's a lot more to it. I've given you the hard copy of I've gotten you the report via email. You can take a look at that. The next thing we discussed was finance. That was Assistant Superintendent for Business Lisa Raymond. The one new piece, Assemblywoman Mary Jane Shimsky has requested estimates of possible facilities projects in the $300,000 to $500,000 range for her to submit to the New York State budget. Our response included the tennis court project, expanding the track to 8 lanes, paving projects for existing driveways and the driveway to the athletic field. We could also include part of the R.J. Bailey roof and the science wing at Woodlands Middle High School. The other thing that we wanted to talk about was the energy performance contract. So we passed that resolution, so that's in process. And the big thing we were worried about was what are the equivalent of interest rates like for the project, and is it too high? And so we made a request, and they checked with our financial advisor, and they found a sample bid for a $6 million energy performance contract from a Long Island district, and the lowest bid from all the banks who bid on it was 3.39%. As long as we're under 4%, when we finally get to this thing about a year from now, we're okay. If it goes much above that, then we don't have we're in trouble in terms of having to scale back the size of the project. So right now, with the high rate of inflation we've got, they're still at 3.39%. So things may turn out to be okay there. In terms of the audit committee update, Chris, did you want to say a word or two about that? No, you want me to do it? Okay. So the one thing I want to highlight from the audit committee update is the New York State Comptroller's audit continues. As of 6/30, the 6/30 independent audit, our tax certiorari reserves were about $12.4 million. Depending on the Comptroller's Office audit report, recommendation, and board resolutions, one option may be to move some funds to capital reserve, leave them where they are, or put them in another reserve, right? So you have the ability to move money if we think we've got more money set aside for tax certs than we need. Also, the independent auditor candidate interviews were complete, and the contract is included in the board agenda for adoption. So that process has moved on. Facilities fund update. I think I will skip most of that. I'll highlight two things. The repair reserves current balance is about $4.3 million, and the 21-22 fund balance available for facilities projects is $1.4 million. So you end up with a little over $5 million. That's where it comes from if we want to do that and work that into phase 2. I'm not going to talk about the 5-year facilities plan. I think we've done that to death. Let's talk about the facilities projects. So we have a number of large projects. Woodlands High School Security Vestibule, the $450K project is not starting until May. We're still waiting for materials, so that won't get in the way of the upcoming school musical. Mansion roof and masonry with a $1.6 million project is almost complete. We're only waiting on one section. The Phase 1 Highview roof is done. We're working on the punch list for the winter break. Lisa, did that get done during the winter break? Are we completely done with that roof now, or are we still going? Still going, okay. Then, so Jackson, Bailey, and Woodlands, we're waiting for the heating season to end for the things that have to do with the furnace, and in some cases, there are bathrooms that we don't want to have unavailable, so we'll do that work during the summer. R.J. Bailey Auditorium renovations, $515,000. We're waiting SHPO approval. I guess the Historical Preservation Society needs to ask questions and determine if everything is okay. Woodlands Middle High School tennis courts, $500K project. We're waiting for funding, and we'll see if that request back to the state bears fruit, in addition to what the U.S. Tennis Association could help us a little bit with. Woodlands track, We're getting funding from Senator Stuart Cousins, and BBS has just submitted the updated proposal to include the 2 extra lanes. So you get, I guess, 8 lanes. You can have larger competitions. The cost is $1,173,874. We would need additional funding for that. Then, the Woodlands Middle High School partial window replacement, I guess I'll highlight that. 2 locations on the first floor, 1 on the second floor that need to be replaced. This could be declared an emergency because of student and staff safety. We've looked at it. I believe that, that some reinforcement is done. Lisa, do you want to talk about that for a second?
Yes, Dennis and his staff have put reinforcements there so nobody can get past it. And we have prices on to get out of repairs.
Good. So just for your knowledge, there are floor-to-ceiling glass panels on the ends of a couple of hallways in this building on the 2nd and 3rd floor. We looked at them after the meeting. They look a little rattly, and so now we've got a reinforcement so that's no longer a safety issue, so we're good there. The water main and fire hydrant project, $814,000. We're arranging with a surveyor for rock core samples to figure out what will happen in terms of if you have to dig down below the frost level. Will we be okay there, or will it be more expensive than we think because of the depending on the type of rock you run into if you have to burrow through it? District-wide building utilization study. The architect proposal is $26,000. And I don't know, Dr. Iverson, do you want to say anything about that at this point? The district-wide utilization study, did you want to describe that at all or not?
So we're proposing to do a district-wide utilization study as we are looking to assure that as our enrollment begins to grow, we are beginning to see some numbers, an increase in our enrollment, and to be able to support our ECP program and the potential for growth there. We're going to begin this study to give us some feedback and data on that will let us know where we do have space and how we can go about that. So the utilization study is when they come in and look and measure your space in right-size classes and class space with numbers and tell you where your potential holes are, where you could probably utilize space better, and give you data on that as we look to do some work around that next year.
So if we need to have space allocated properly so everything fits and we don't end up with surfaces in the halls, that's the path towards that. For the energy performance contract, there was a federal bipartisan infrastructure law, including Renew America school provisions to promote energy efficiency in high-need districts. BBS and Con Edison Solutions have submitted a concept paper to the Department of Energy in the Office of State and Community Energy Programs for our district. Typical awards range from $500,000 to $15 million. There's approximately $2 million in the grant if we're approved. It's currently in review, and we're not considered a needy school district according to the combined wealth ratio guidelines, which has been our bane forever. So we're not optimistic about it, but it's another method of making the energy performance contract pay for itself without the danger of de-scoping it. We discussed our wealth ratio issue with several state legislators. Haven't had anything move on that, but we made the attempt. So I wanted you to know it was out there. Smaller projects, I'm just going to hit a couple. The cafeteria window wall was blown open during the windstorm. We looked at a bunch of pictures of that. It just pretty much a partition just kind of fell out over where the heaters were. It's all been repaired and put back together. We received quotes for upgrades for boys and girls bathrooms near the gyms at $60,000 to $70,000. We need to allocate funding for a possible summer project for that. And I'm skipping a bunch of stuff. But the, at Lee F. Jackson, the mansion boiler room flooded during the same weekend of the windstorm. The water main froze. We looked at pictures of that. Boilers and water main have been repaired, and heat tape was installed in the main to prevent a recurrence of this, so it won't freeze again, no matter how cold it gets, because you're electrically heating the pipe. At Lee F. Jackson, one boiler seam between boiler sections needs to be re-roped, but has been temporarily patched with cement. We're running on the second boiler only. During a recent cold snap, the temperature reached a low of 4 degrees, but the heat was maintained using the good boiler. So we're running fine, and we're expecting the damaged boiler may be replaced as part of the energy performance contract. So that's all good. I'm going to skip all the stuff about all the small projects. Last item was other concerns. There was a question regarding each school budget with which each principal submits to the superintendent for their individual school. We reviewed where the budget can be found on the district website. We're obviously coming up with the new draft for next year's budget. That's we're going to shift gears a little bit on this committee for a little while as we go through our budget cycle. And so the committee members were eager to look at what's coming up in terms of what's in a line-by-line budget. So we discussed the process of budget allocation, and we discussed budget for snacks. And as I mentioned earlier, after the meeting adjourned, we went up and looked at the windows we were concerned about at Woodlands. And then the next meeting, the Finance and Facilities Committee, is March 16th at 6:30 p.m. at Woodlands Middle High School Innovation Lab or via Zoom. The link will be on the website in the calendar. Thank you.
Thank you, Trustee Warner. Are there any questions, concerns? Hearing none, I do want to know where we can find all these minutes. I'm looking in board docs. It looks like they go through November, but,
Look in your email entry. I sent this report to you today.
okay, but I mean for everybody else that may want to see the minutes, where could they find it?
Yes, they have to be adopted before I can post them.
Okay.
So
All
that's
right.
after the next meeting.
So